Hi.
Amazing. Hi. Okay, let's here we go. Welcome back. So if any of you are just joining us, you are here with Heather Mason, and I'm so looking forward to this conversation. My name is Christopher. I'm here with Daniela, and this is the Extraordinary Yoga Teacher Summit.
Let's just jump in with Heather's introduction because we went a few minutes over.
Great. So Heather is an educator, innovator, policy advocate, and thought leader in yoga therapy, renowned for her work in integrative mind-body mental health. She's the founder and course director of the Minded Institute, founding trustee of the Yoga and Healthcare Alliance, played a central role in establishing the all-party parliamentary group on yoga and society, where she served as the secretariat, has been entrusted as the steward of the Yoga Biomedical Trust, founded by the late Dr. Robin Monroe, and co-hosts the Yoga for Health podcast. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here. So I have a slideshow.
Okay.
I wanted to go through things with, sort of like, I would go through them with clarity, but with a sense of like organized bullet points, because I'm going to talk to everybody about the potential of a career in yoga therapy. And there's so much to say, like so much. So I wanted to make sure that I could make it compact. Do I have screen sharing
You do. You
access?
can you can jump right in and we'll save questions for the end.
Okay, perfect. So, okay. Okay. So, no need really to say anything about this. Um, I want to talk to you about what a career in yoga therapy is like. Now, this image, this is AI generated. I will honestly say that. I wanted to encapsulate something within this photo, and I couldn't find anything like it online. I wanted to provide this felt sense of searching for so many different things and going in every different direction amongst so many different people, and then having this thing right in front of myself or another person. I did not become a yoga therapist or develop a yoga therapy school because that is what I intended. I'm very public about the fact that I had mental health issues, pretty severe ones, depression, anxiety, PTSD for many years. I almost became a Buddhist nun. I spent 3 years living in monasteries, and I decided before I was going to shave my head that I wanted to do a master's degree in Buddhist studies and understand more clearly some of the teachings. And although you can hear this American accent, you heard about a parliamentary group. I live in the UK, and that's how I ended up living here. And from there, I studied many other things. Psychotherapy, after the master's degree in Buddhist studies, and also during the 3 years in the monastery, I became a yoga teacher. And I was using yoga teaching in order to help people to better understand how to be with their minds. But I didn't feel that I had enough skill. And when I was working with talking therapy, in some ways, it wasn't authentic because I had been using mindfulness and yoga for years for my own transformation. So I trained as a yoga therapist. And back in 2007, when I did that, the trainings were not at the level that they are now. And I had to travel all over the world. This is almost me. Everywhere that I could find anybody that was offering a training in yoga therapy for mental health. And from there, I went to study neuroscience, medical physiology, various other things. And what I've realized also in developing the training through the Minded Institute is that yoga therapy encapsulates all the things that I was searching for all along. And I think it's very fortunate when people can find it before they have to do all of these different degrees, all of these additional trainings piecemeal. So this is what I'm putting forward. I did not choose to do this a priori, in advance. I became a yoga therapist because that was the only thing that encapsulated everything that I wanted to experience for myself, offer others, and to teach. So, in order to understand yoga therapy, because a lot of people just think, it's yoga for a health condition, I need to give you a little bit of background knowledge. And I think this story is really interesting. So, most of us would probably argue that yoga has always been therapeutic. I certainly would. And some people would claim that the Hatha Yoga Pratipika is the first official yoga therapy text. But something really interesting happened in the early 1920s. So Swami Kaivalyananda wanted scientists from the West to study the physiological effects of yoga. He felt strongly that, because there were some ideas that, yogis levitate and all of these conceptions from people that understood anything about yoga that were very far off from reality. He wanted to lend credibility to it. So he had scientists come from various different countries, primarily Germany, the UK, and the United States, and they were discovering things such as yoga was actually reducing blood pressure and heart rate and other such important findings. He then founded the world's first yoga research center and the first yoga research journal, which still exists. It's not very rigorous, but it's a really big deal. He did that over 100 years ago. So he set the stage for a new therapeutic application of yoga that was not only based on energetic understanding and the wisdom of yogis from generations and millennia, but also was threading through science so that we could quantify how it was changing and even why. So there was this guy, Richard Hedelman. He's actually from New York, and he studied at Columbia. He was super interested in the therapeutic value of yoga. He traveled to India, and somehow he came back to the United States in the 1950s, and he ended up on television espousing the health benefits of yoga. I don't know why he then moved to the UK, but that really launched his career. And he was all over the UK on something called ITV, and explaining that yoga had real health benefits to mass audiences. So it's important to put that into context. And then we have this huge guru from India, Desikachar, who was the son of Krishnamacharya, the teacher of so many of the gurus of the last age. And Desikachar, studying under his father, was learning to treat patients in a person-centered way for their health issues. So this particular thread is really important. So between people like Richard, Desikachar, and the interest in research, there starts to become, I would say, a low-level movement with people in positions of authority paying attention, such as Dr. Chandra Patel, who was a well-known doctor in the UK and did the first really meaningful study showing that yoga could reduce hypertension, like high blood pressure, more than basic relaxation exercises. And it was published in The Lancet. If you're not familiar with this, this is one of the most respected medical journals in the world. So it was a really cardinal moment. And then two other really big figures also were interested. One, Dean Ornish. So Dean Ornish, some of you may know him, the Ornish diet, the Ornish system, right? Before he went to Harvard Medical School, he lived in the Satchitananda ashram. So he went there already a yogi. When he graduated, he was interested in applying yoga systems to the reversal of heart disease, right? Because he's also reading the work of Chandra Patel. His cardinal study wasn't published until 1990, showing that a yoga-based intervention could reverse heart disease, which is enormous. But he was doing that stuff for 20 years. So that's really meaningful. And Robin Monroe, who was mentioned in my introduction, also became interested, and he was a real bigwig. So Robin Monroe was actually on the research team with Watson and Crick. If you're not familiar with them, they are the Nobel Prize award-winning team who discovered the shape of DNA, the double helix. He was on their team. He discovered an enzyme necessary to make RNA, and he had terrible, terrible asthma. In World War II, he was sent to the United States in order to save his life, and it developed into some kind of psychosomatic reaction, that sense of abandonment. So he had trouble breathing his whole life. And he met this yogi in the 70s who taught him some pranayama. It remitted entirely. He gave up his entire career. And he decided to devote the rest of his life. He lived till 94, and he was working till he was 92, this man. He decided to devote the rest of his life to lending credibility to the effectiveness, the efficacy of yoga practices. And he founded the Yoga Biomedical Trust and one of the first formal yoga therapy training programs in the world. So this is when Yoga 4 is born, and I want to differentiate this. This is where there is a clear recognition that yoga has a value in specific health conditions, that we can offer specific practices for this, understand specific precautions, and we can research it. But yoga therapy is actually more than Yoga 4, or what I like to say, therapeutic yoga, which has a huge place, which is amazing, which is part of the whole gamut of this world of yoga for people that are interested in spiritual transformation, to health and well-being, to conditions, to really deep interventions to change their life and health conditions. So things start to converge. Research speeds up. And I'm a huge research nerd. Whether you are or you're not, this is pretty amazing. So between 1948 and 1970, we had about 609. That's very specific to say about. We had 609 studies. 1971 to 2000, we had a total of 609 from 1971 to 2087 before that. Then it sped up. From 2001 to 2018, we had 64,000. But in the last 6.5 years, we've had almost that much. So there is a real interest in yoga's value in health conditions. And these studies are looking at two primary things. One is, how is yoga going to help for anxiety, depression, heart disease, cancer? And the other is, what is the mechanism of action? Exactly why is this pranayama doing this? Because if I understand this, I can wisely apply it based on medical knowledge. Right? So those two things have intersected. And from the 1970s, where there has been landmark research looking at the psychophysiological mechanisms of mind-body practice, like probably the most important figure was Herbert Benson, who discovered that through meditation, you could completely change the rate at which you synthesized your energy molecule, saving so many resources for your body, and simply heal through relaxation. Actually have reversal of high blood pressure, reduced inflammation. Okay, so all of this is coming together. I'm almost done with my history. And Gary Kraskow, he studies under Desikachar in India, and he comes back to the US, and he does something that really, I think we could say, changes the field and is a cardinal moment. So he applies the ancient Panchamaya Kosha model, right? The 5 kosha model, or the 5 domains of being, to the human being in order to understand diagnostically what may be ailing them. In doing so, he's basically saying that nothing is just body or just mind or just breath. And in treating the human being, we have to look at all of these elements. So the koshas, if you're not familiar with them, or even if you are, so they're often translated in English as sheaths, which I think is weird. I prefer domains, but it's sort of like Russian dolls. So the most outer sheath is Annamaya Kosha. This is our physicality. This is everything about how we feel physically in our body, whether we have pain or the lack thereof, what we eat, if we take certain supplements, how we walk, how we sleep, everything about our physicality, any health conditions that are emerging, affecting our anatomy or physiology. Then we have the breath layer, right? Pranamaya kosha. And this is, of course, about how we breathe. But just as prana is more than just breath, it's energy, so is this kosha. It's how we use our energy. It's the level of energy we have. And there's also a relationship between this and sleep. A lot of the koshas will have overlaps because they're integrated, right? They're interdependent upon each other. Next is the mind body, Manamaya Kosha, and this is the basic mind, the mind of everyday concepts, the mind of rumination, the mind of judgment, the mind of analysis, the mind of self-criticism. And then the next layer, that is the wisdom layer. And here is discernment, greater awareness. It is from this place that we better understand what we need to do, the health behaviors to engage in, whether or not we can trust our thoughts, what is going to be useful for us. And then the final layer, Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss layer. And the bliss layer can never be out of balance, but the other layers above it can obscure access to it. So what Gary Krasow is doing is basically saying, the field of yoga therapy not only needs to be applying yoga techniques to health conditions, are they looking at how yoga can be employed for different health conditions, but looking across the whole spectrum of the person, looking at a truly person-centered way of treating a human being. And then in 1989, things become solidified where the International Association of Yoga Therapists is formed. And this organization is dedicated to advancing the field of yoga therapy. It's involved in accreditation and credentialing. And then the final piece that really made the difference was that people who were starting to practice this field of yoga therapy were often coming from mental health backgrounds. And they were saying, you know what, the relationship also really matters. The people who are doing this work, they need to know how to attune to clients. They need to have skills like active listening. They need to be able to paraphrase, to really clearly look at their own projections and to see the clients for who they are. And so the field emerges through all of these different factors. And the field is therefore basically the result of this. So yoga therapy is a field that draws increasingly on cutting edge knowledge, on psychoneuroimmunology, which is a field that looks at how our mind affects our brain, how our mind affects our immune system, how our immune system affects our brain, our mind. It is considered very cutting edge. The research coming out of here is also employed within pharmacological interventions. But because yoga therapy and researchers within the field of yoga have been looking at physiological mechanisms since the 70s, it draws on this, which is really interesting. It's very, very cutting edge. It operates inherently at something that is now recognized as crucial: the biopsychosocial, spiritual components of the person, right? If you have somebody with heart disease, right, and they get some kind of valve transplant, if they don't change their behaviors, they may again present in the same kind of way, right? You need to think about the biological, the psychological. How can you support them doing things differently? What kind of environment do they need to be in order to exercise these improved behaviors? And also, what is meaningful in their life? So biopsychosocial approaches and seeking them out is very in vogue these days in the United Kingdom and also in the United States. And there are not great models. Yoga therapy really stands out, not only for what it does in terms of yoga, but as one of the most profound and useful domains. I teach a lot to medical professionals who might not be interested in yoga, but still they love the kosha model. It's person-centered, right? So you're not saying, okay, everybody with depression needs to do this sequence. Everybody with cancer should be doing this. Everybody with trauma should be doing that. right? Rather, yoga therapists learn through looking in all of these domains to see the individual and also the condition. It's grounded in research and informed by clinical practice. So there's an intake process, there's risk assessment, there are considerations around how one engages in clinical reasoning, and it offers a therapeutic response to the existential questions of meaning, suffering, and change, something we do not have in most healthcare professions. It is sorely lacking. And I guess I thought this point was really important because it's also at the bottom as well as the top of the slide. Now, profession uniquely suited to modern suffering. This is where I really get on my bandwagon, right? Everything else is for me to introduce it to you. But yoga therapy purposely and also kind of incidentally has become a response to the multidimensional nature of dukkha in the modern world. Modern medicine excels at treating infectious disease. That's what it was designed to do. We have those silver bullet moments of learning how to give people insulin for diabetes or antibiotics that completely changes lifespan. But the current landscape that we are in, healthcare is not set up to respond to it, and it knows it. I speak to physicians almost every day who may be very entrenched in the biomedical model, but are saying something's not working. In fact, I was doing that 3 hours ago before here. We are now in the point where we are experiencing dis-ease. And I thought until about a year ago, well, this is a Western world problem. No, it's not. Even in poor countries in Africa, in poor countries in Asia, there is greater presentations of conditions that are a result of lifestyle than infectious. And we call these, if we're using technical language, we call these non-communicable diseases, diseases that don't arise from infection. So that includes heart disease, all mental health conditions, neurodegenerative disorders, so many things. Then there's multimorbidity, which is probably one of the biggest issues of today. It's that because so many health conditions are the result of lifestyle, people will present with more than one at the same time. Or being diagnosed with a long-term condition can lead to mental health issues. And healthcare systems are not designed for one professional to treat both things at the same time, by and large. So this costs huge amounts of money. I can't say regarding US statistics, but for example, in the UK, if you have type 2 diabetes and also depression, which commonly go together because depression may lead to certain habits that promote diabetes if one has the proclivity towards it. And also, having diabetes can lead to depression. So in the UK, it would cost the healthcare system 50% to 200% more to treat that individual. And that individual goes to clinic to clinic to clinic and is exhausted and then doesn't want to engage in self-care because they're tired from just going to the appointments. We are in a world where there's such a grand sense of loss of meaning, right? You're all here today, which is amazing, for great energy and finding that sense of purpose and meaning. But our world is an existential crisis. And you don't go to your doctor and say, I don't know what to do with my life, help me, right? They may be able to offer medication and do a great job, but they can't help with that. Yoga therapy is incredibly well set up to deal with all of this because of the different domains that it works within. It can work with depression and type 2 diabetes at the same time, maybe in conjunction with medication. It can work with long-term conditions, and I'm going to give you an example on the next slide. We can use philosophical concepts from yoga to help somebody find a sense of meaning. Although yoga therapists are not necessarily attached to yoga philosophy, they also are skilled in inquiry, and they might just work with somebody to help them find meaning whilst they're also calming their nervous system, finding strength, flexibility, and a sense of balance, both metaphorically and physically. And the other thing that the modern world is suffering from is disconnectedness from self, from body, from community. I live in a country where we have a minister devoted to loneliness within the UK Parliament. We have a loneliness minister. We have something called social prescribing. People are so lonely and disconnected in this country that they are actually referred to activity groups in order to make friends so that they present less often at healthcare institutions. It's a huge issue, right? And yoga therapy is uniquely set up. I know I'm biased, but I can't think of any system better, any health profession better to do this than yoga therapy. So what is it like being a yoga therapist? I just want to give you a little bit about what basically goes within a training, right? So you would have all this knowledge. How yoga techniques and philosophy are applied and shown to have efficacy based on a deep physiological knowledge, including, like I said, psychoneuroimmunology, an understanding of medical conditions from a medical lens, but also from a yogic energetic lens, clinical skills and clinical reasoning, so that you can really consider the person before you and their host of symptoms and their unique needs and come up with something, an intervention that is bespoke. Psychotherapeutic skills, somatic awareness skills that you find in various other therapies, pattern recognition, right? So that anxiety and that digestive issue and that sense of loneliness, they seem to be going together. Physiotherapeutic skills, so they're not physios, but yoga therapists do learn quite a lot about working with different anatomical issues and how to cultivate a therapeutic relationship, how to cultivate a sense of having an alliance with another person where that in itself is a healing factor. In psychotherapy, no matter what style you engage in, if you are a therapist, the most crucial variable in healing is actually the therapeutic relationship, whether it's CBT or psychodynamic or psychoanalytic. So again, you're learning this piece, which is really important. So what does it look like in practice? Okay. So initial contact is made. The client will reach out to you by email. And it's really important. For me, I run the Minded Institute. I've been training people for 17 years that there's an actual discussion that takes place. So you have a sense of the person's tone of voice, their pacing, the things they aren't saying. And then you send them an intake form that is constructed around the koshas, right? So that even if they haven't thought about it, you are asking about their physical layer. You are asking about their energetic layer. You are asking about their wisdom layer, their mental layer, and their bliss. And then you will go forward and try and track patterns. And based upon that, develop an intervention. So let's just have, I don't know why that's across there, but anyway, let's just have a theoretical client. So let's say a client comes to you, and the reason that they're coming to you is because they feel really lonely. They've recently had a car accident in the last 6 months. They've been to a physio, right? Because that probably is out of the scope of practice if you've had a serious injury. They've been to a physio, but they still have chronic pain. They're at home quite a lot. They're used to being a high-powered executive. They're experiencing high levels of loneliness. And so they're seeking out an intervention where there may also be meaning and purpose involved. You look at the intake form, right, which has a series of questions, and they've also ticked off that they have digestive issues, right? So maybe they have Crohn's, right? They have inflammatory bowel disease. They also have chronic anxiety and have from childhood. They've been lonely most of their life. They were bullied when they were younger, and they spent ages and ages trying to find a way to cope, and that was to become very apt at their work. And They tried to form friendships. Through much of their life, they felt that they were failing, but they started to kind of get it going. And then this car accident hit, and here they are again, lonely in their bed. You also discover, right, in their first meeting with you, you discover some things through asking questions. You discover that when they're anxious, which often occurs when they're worried that they're going to be rejected, that their digestive issues get worse. You also discover that when they are anxious and their digestive issues get worse, they isolate themselves because they're so embarrassed of the consequences, leading to more loneliness. And so all of these things are spiraling. And while you have this intake form and you've already considered these patterns, and you have this individual in front of you in the first session and you're asking them questions, you're attuning, you're saying, what kind of language speaks to them? How can you explain the value of yoga therapy? You're watching as you speak in certain ways, whether, their shoulders are tightening or their chest is opening. You're listening to the pauses in between. You're trying to find out what's really important to them. And also what's going to be most effective based upon this whole panoply of symptoms that runs across all the koshas. And you might decide to offer something as simple as elongated ujjayi breath, because you know that elongated ujjayi breath sends signals down the vagus nerve to slow down the heart rate, reducing anxiety. You know as a yoga therapist that the vagus nerve releases certain inhibitory factors for inflammation, which may help that individual to have a reduction of digestive issues. You've also learned that the vagus nerve is associated with the social engagement network, and that people can feel a sense of connectedness even in the absence of another person. So you offer them this very basic practice. You explain to them, because this is a pretty well-educated client, how this is going to work across various domains, and you ask them to go ahead with you in the session, you teach it, and to take it for home practice. And then they do it. They come in the next session with whatever they're presenting with. You have ideas and plans of what you're going to do, but you have studied as a yoga therapist for 2 years, so that if next week they walk in and they're presenting with something completely unexpected, you still have the skills to completely switch gears and respond differently. So what it means and feels like to be a yoga therapist, and I think for me, this is really the most important thing. It's dedicating yourself to the well-being of another as the orienting purpose of your work, right? And that's really nice. And bringing what you're passionate about into an evidence-informed practice with a genuine capacity to make a difference to clients' health. So I interview for my program every year a few hundred people. And one of the most common things they say is, I really want to be able to make a difference in people's lives. And everybody that comes to my program, they're either a health professional or a yoga professional. So they're already doing big things to work with others. And yet they feel they need more. They need more. And they feel that this field that they have started to research is where they're going to get that. For those from the yoga world, it's stepping into a coherent professional identity. A yoga therapist is a health practitioner, a health professional, and that's a really important distinction, right? Whenever I tell somebody I offer yoga therapy, they just, go immediately into all the asanas and handstand and headstand, and there's an education process of, no, this is a health profession. And this is what it entails. And I think that shift in identity as well is really meaningful. And the owning of it, not just being ego, like I can help in this really clear way. Drawing together what many of us have been forced to pursue separately, like I have. I did 4 master's degrees, basically to discover the thing that I now teach, under a single coherent framework that really meets whole person care. and working within a vocation devoted to health and spiritual cultivation. And those are two things that are deeply meaningful to me. And yoga therapy is very niche. So it's a tribe of people that are focused on that and also on some evidence base, allowing you to serve from that perspective and also to experience that for yourself. Now, where are yoga therapists working? The biggest institution to have yoga therapists across the world is the VA in the United States. The Veterans Affairs healthcare system is completely different than the healthcare system in the rest of the country. Here, yoga therapy was formally recognized as a federal occupational classification in 2024. If you are a veteran, you can have access to yoga therapy primarily for PTSD or chronic pain at any VA center in the country. That's a huge deal, a huge endorsement, and it speaks to the future of this profession. Some other places, so MD Anderson, which is one of the premier cancer centers in the whole world, they have one of the biggest programs. Sloan Kettering, the Cleveland Clinic, which is a bunch of clinics all over the world, the Mayo Clinic, hospitals and integrative medicine departments across the United States and in the UK. In most hospitals these days, you will have at least one yoga therapist. Chronic pain and rehabilitation programs, right? Specifically for people with eating disorders and substance misuse issues, prison and justice settings, crisis, specifically rape crisis and homeless shelters and mental health centers, and just so many places. So if you're interested in this profession, I want to refer you to the website for the International Association of Yoga Therapists. They are the primary organization in the world advancing this field, but there are other organizations, including in the United Kingdom, in India. Japan has quite an active movement as well. And if you're interested in the program that the Minded Institute delivers, which has a really strong focus on mental health, not at the expense of other conditions, but that's our bread and butter. You can also look on our website, and we created the first psychotherapy program in the world specifically for yoga therapists, acknowledging the 2 years of additional training that they undertake, and usually another year of case studies, and then additional psychotherapeutic skills and case studies as well, so that people are duly trained. And so they can work with somebody using talking therapy that has trauma and had a heart attack, and be working with improving cardiovascular health, their mental health, and root causes. Okay, so I'm ending with this picture. I tried so hard to find a quote that encapsulated what I wanted to say, but I couldn't. So I finally decided an image was going to do it. The thing about this profession is you become it, right? So as you practice yoga therapy, you actually change. I mean, you do with so many professions, but when I look at my hands and I see myself moving, I'm considering my energy, my breath, my mental state, the layers of myself. It's like I've become a being that sees the koshas through everything, right? I understand my reality in a completely different way. It has shaped me into somebody that actually I would have always wanted to be. And with all of the things that people declare after they finish a yoga therapy training or mine, I think the biggest thing unexpectedly is how it changed them. And they really don't expect that, because some of them come in with 20 years of yoga teaching experience or are doctors that are very senior in their field. Anyway, that's all I got from now. So, yeah.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather, that was so wonderful. What an incredible layout of the promise and the potential of yoga therapy as a career path. I'd love to ask you though, you mentioned that when you go through this process that you become it, that this changes the individual. And you also mentioned that you've been guiding these, teaching these, training facilitators for 17 years with the Minded Institute. And in one of our conversations, you mentioned the
Mhm.
breadth of the teaching team that you have in the rigor that students go through. So could you dive in a little bit to your specific approach and why you've taken so much of your time and your life energy to create one of the premier training programs in the world?
Well, I think the first piece is that when you've suffered so profoundly and you have been fortunate enough to have the life journey that I have, where you can travel to Asia and do all of these degrees, you want to give back and you want this to be accessible to other people. And the only way to do that really is to get it into healthcare. It's very expensive to do privately. To get it into healthcare, you need to be able to speak the language of healthcare. And so I have an extraordinary team. I mean, I'll brag about them till the end of days. They're amazing. And almost every member of my team has done my training, and I've watched them over 2 years. They've come with other skills. They are experts in something else. And I've said, please, you have this thing that I don't. Join us, join us. And so every year, since my first year in 2009, I've grown my team based upon that and upgraded it. But this devotion is very much because I want to see it embedded into healthcare systems. And so our program is like a master's degree. I've decided not to have it officially recognized as a master's degree because of how much control a university has over the curriculum then. And I've spent 17 years and I would have to make huge changes. But for all intents and purposes, having done 4 master's degrees as a collector of them, it is like a part-time master's degree. And what's interesting is how seriously our graduates are taken as well. I'm constantly amazed when I hear what they're doing, and I'm surprised. Um, so, did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. And your program, does it only start once a year? Is that correct?
It only starts once a year, and it is kind of also it's a little bit competitive. So we have a few hundred applications every year. It's starting in October, and we have still a few spaces left if people are interested. There's a 2-part interview process, and I have, based upon the way I explain things, it probably doesn't surprise anybody that we have a 60-page prospectus that you can download. There are a lot of pictures. It's not all just, it's not all just words. And then you can have an interview with me where we can discuss jointly if this is right, and then a second interview as well. But yes, we only have one intake a year, and we divided the program into year 1 and year 2. In the past, everybody had to do both years. But because there's such a focus on mental health, and we are the premier yoga therapy for mental health training globally, we decided to allow people to do just the first year if they wanted to. And then the second year, there's a few additional mental health conditions, and there's a strong focus on physical health conditions. I really like that as well, because if you have heart disease, you're probably going to have other mental health issues because it's very disturbing, right? If you have cancer, the same, or if you have a diagnosis of dementia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Heather.
So I'm not, that's a yes. We only have one intake a year, but we do lots of professional development courses. Oh, and I'm offering a breath assessment next weekend. I know it's UK hours, so it would start at 5 a.m. East Coast Standard Time. But breath assessment is really core in yoga therapy, so you can understand, just like that other person said before me, pranayama is medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to know what the problem really is before you prescribe. And so it's a 5-hour program on breath assessment with a pre-recording that is a deep dive into respiratory physiology. And I said that I would give a discount to everybody at the conference. So if anybody's interested, we still have some spaces on that.
That's so kind of you. That's so, so kind. And you had another gift you wanted us to share, which is a yoga class for anxiety. Do you want to say anything else?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's actually freely available on the website. You've just put it in the chat. Thanks. So you can also see what my approach is like specifically here, if you like it. And there's a lot of very low cost classes on the website for anxiety. and constantly growing. They're 5 pounds. I don't know what that is. What is that, like $6.50?
Yeah, totally affordable.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for Heather or Daniela? Is there anything from you?
There's a question that I just saw in the chat. Um, should I answer it?
Please go ahead.
So there are, for us, we do a hybrid model of in person and online for our trainings for the long diplomas. In terms of whether or not you can access that, it depends on whether or not you're in the UK or not, but we do in person and online things. Um, and I'm interested in the breath class and the yoga class. Okay. Yeah.
Some of your education is completely online,
Yes, some of
right?
our education is completely online. I just finished a 5-day training, like 3 hours ago, with a bunch of health professionals. That was 5 days, 9 hours a day online. I can't believe I'm here lecturing again. I hope I was cogent.
Heather, your dedication is admirable.
Thank you. As is yours. And Daniela, I've had the esteemed pleasure of actually getting to know you guys behind the scenes, and it's been amazing. We've had some really deep conversations that I've appreciated and have been heartfelt. Do you accept students who have completed IAYT or partially? Partially, no, because that's really complicated. But if you want to come to our psychotherapy program, we do accept people from other courses. But note that psychotherapy is regulated country by country, whereas yoga therapy is not. The website, if you want, again, is themindedinstitute.com. And by the way, the Yoga and Healthcare Alliance, which was not what I'm here to talk about today, that is the primary organization in the UK bringing yoga into healthcare. I founded that, but our CEO, Paul Fox, is making huge headway in this country bringing yoga into healthcare, and it's coming together. Like, we're seeing massive shifts. So that's also exciting. You can look up the Yoga and Healthcare Alliance and his work.
Daniela?
I just want to say thank you so much, Heather. What an absolutely incredible overview of as yoga therapy as a career path. I'm so grateful. I hope that this segment can be utilized in many places. We need more well-trained yoga therapists. We do. We really do. It is whole person healing. It is whole person health and whole person healing. And just thank you so much.
Thank you. It was lovely to be here. And I wish all of you well. May you be happy and healthy, and may you have an opportunity to take care of all of the parts of you. Namaste.
Thank you, Heather.
So-
Well, that brings our day 2 to a close. Thank you. We have a surprise coming together next Sunday. We'll be inviting all of our presenters back for a roundtable Q&A panel type session. So we'll send you all an invite for that. It'll be a much, much shorter session. It will start at noon Eastern time. Danielle and I lead a monthly community Sunday. We'll do a short Qigong practice. Daniela will lead from her Keys for Conscious Living curriculum for the first hour. And then the second hour, we'll invite Heather and Kim Beekman and everybody else who is here. We'll invite them back, and everybody who is free, who wants to come join us, can participate. And in between now and a week from now, we'll be delivering our pre-recorded interviews each day. We'll put them out at 6 a.m. Eastern time, and you'll have a day with each. So thank you all. It's a true joy to come together like this. And thank you for paying attention and for staying to the end. Anything from you, Daniela?
I'm just so grateful. This has just been such a beautiful weekend to get to spend with you. Thank you so much for gifting yourself time to be here and to have your mind and your heart and your body nourished. And it's our wish that perhaps some of you have found a next step or a teacher that maybe you didn't even know you were looking for has suddenly appeared for you. And we're just thrilled beyond at the at the possibilities here for every participant. And be on the lookout. Each day, Christopher will be emailing you 3 additional talks per day. Is it 3 or 4 per day that get?
Three, yeah, three.
Yeah, so you'll have that nicely organized in your inbox, and so more to come this week. And we look forward to seeing you on at the close of the summit next Sunday.
Thank you, everyone.
Such a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Myrna. Have a beautiful, beautiful afternoon, and we will see you all soon.
Bye.